Welcome to Rewriting Real Estate, Millionaire Moves and Modern Tactics with your host, Kimberly Falker, a coach, mentor and strategist for agents who are ready to scale smarter. On this show, you'll learn from high-performing agents who are building their empires with innovation, intention and no apologies. Whether you're an experienced agent stuck at a plateau or a rising star ready to fast-track your success, this podcast gives you the real-world tactics, mindset shifts, and lessons learned from those rewriting the rules.
Hey everyone, so nice to have you on the show. I just start off with learning a little bit about you because obviously I look at the guitars behind you and real estate was not your first rodeo. Who were you or whatever before real estate?
Oh, we're going the Wayback Machine, the origin story. Yeah, multiple different lives lived prior to real estate. But the shortest version I can give you is grew up a broke baby in Southwest Detroit, moved to the suburbs when we were younger, and spent majority of my life in Michigan. And I did a lot of different things. My grandparents worked for the factories, Ford and GM. We were house divided. Everybody worked hard, and that was the life we lived. But I went to school to be a music teacher, ultimately. Was a musician, hence the guitars behind me. Classically trained in trumpet and voice and all that other stuff, and ultimately did nothing with any of that. I went to school to be a teacher and recognized really quickly, because I was one of those kids who I worked through college. My parents didn't.
Where'd you go?
Which one is the better question? I started at Eastern Michigan and then went to Schoolcraft, which is a community college, because I couldn't get my crap together. I went through the path that I think a lot of young students do when they're trying to figure their lives out. But ultimately, I never saw myself being in the orchestra or teaching. And I knew it early. I just didn't know how to say no, I think, is what was really important there. But I started working in lawn and landscape to put myself through college, and worked in the bars and restaurants, just like I think a lot of people did back then. I'll be 49 this year, y'all. So I'm not a spring chicken. It came from a time when you had to work through those types of things. And college wasn't nearly as expensive back then as it is today.
Right.
So you could work a job or two and make your way through it. But I got to about my junior year in terms of credits, and had started a lawn company my sophomore year. And by my junior year, I was making probably 3 times as much money as I was ever going to make as a school teacher.
Wow.
Installing lawns. And this was in the heyday of real estate, when people were using their houses as ATMs. Not necessarily a good time, but it just showed me that there was another path ultimately, Kim. And that's really where I got my first taste of entrepreneurship, and it ruined me, is the best way I could describe it. Being in a situation where I was going to be told what, when, and where never really worked for me as a child to begin with. And then as an adult, it only got worse once I started to make a little bit of money. Now, having said all of that, I was humbled, like a lot of people were during the crash, the economic downturn, and sold my company right before that occurred. Not because I was smart, but because I got an opportunity. And my son at the time was sick with kidney disease, and I was working 100 hours a week, as most people do that are in those types of jobs. And my ex-wife at the time gave me an ultimatum. She's like, "You need to be home with us and find a job." So I did, and went to work for the restaurants. The economy took a dump, and then life looked a lot different at that point. In 2009, I went to work at a Max and Irma's at the Detroit Northwest Airport, by the way. So this is DTW. Yeah, for those of you who know where that is. And I was working at Max and Irma's as a restaurant manager. And one of my employees got into real estate. She was working 2 bar jobs. So she was working at Max and Irma's in the morning, working at a place in Plymouth, Michigan in the evening, and trying to sell real estate in between. And this little girl was hungry, and she made it work. And in 2009, she started calling me, Kim. She was like, "Hey, you'd be great in real estate." I was like, "You do know the world's upside down right now, right? This is
not the best time to get in."
Yeah, I'm selling houses. I'm like, "Yeah, how much are they worth?" She's 11,000. It was just terrible, but she was hungry. And for the next 2 years, she continued to do 2 jobs, sell real estate, and she started to make it work, Kim. And at that point, unfortunately, my ex-wife and our relationship deteriorated. I was miserable working at a corporate job, and I saw no way out of doing anything other than working for other people. So she hit me at the right time. She kept pestering me. She's like, "Look, you'll be great at it. I will get you leads. All you have to do is call them." And she was marketing or she was advertising with Trulia then, right before Zillow bought them. And she would cherry pick the good ones and go sell them some houses and hand me the people who wouldn't answer the phone. And and that's how I started. So I literally listened to CDs to pass my test in Michigan,
Oh,
and started, well, I won't call it selling real estate, but I got my license at that point. And she gave me an opportunity. She handed me a book of leads, and I started calling them. And I got my first sale in October of 2012. I got my license in 2012, July. Got my
okay.
first sale in October, which was a $36,000 turnkey foreclosure. Literally, the father worked at Ford. He was buying the home for his daughter, who was a 19-year-old
Oh,
young lady. She was pregnant. The gentleman wasn't around. And I remember him walking in the house, and he looked at me. I may not be the smartest man in the world, but I know how much it costs to make things, and I will probably never see this again. So he
wow.
took out all of his Ford stock, which was probably worth what, $2 back then?
Right.
Nothing. He
Right.
worked his entire life for, bought this house for 36 grand. All they did was turn the power on, and this young lady was in the house.
Wow.
And it was and that's how I got my taste, right? And it was so fun, and I had a great time. Didn't make any money on that deal. The houses cost nothing, man, and I was splitting it between the broker and this agent who was feeding me leads. And then
You
my
probably
very
had to
next,
pay her to sell it.
yeah, absolutely, exactly. I think I made $800 in GCI off that, which is not a whole lot. And the next home that we sold was a short sale, of course, because that's what everybody was doing back then. Made a little bit of money. And then right before Christmas that year, I sold a $225,000 house. Now, y'all, in Metro Detroit in 2012, that was a mansion.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
was a
you're right.
mansion. And I got my first real check, and I was like, I think I
Now
can
I
do
get it.
this. Yeah, I think I can do this. And basically from there on out, I worked tirelessly to get out of corporate America. And that was how my journey got started in real estate.
Wow. Wow. So then you live now down here near me in Tampa Bay. When did that happen?
Yeah, in 2017, I was walked out of my corporate office. I knew that was coming, by the way. We had just had strategic planning. I worked for the largest beverage wholesaler, the Anheuser-Busch wholesaler in the state of Michigan, 4
Wow.
warehouses. Our division, I was in the craft beer division. We were up for 5 straight years. I never lost money, but when you're in
Wow.
an Anheuser-Busch house and Bud Light's down, somebody's getting whacked. And I just so happened to be the guy who trained my own replacement, and I knew it. I remember we
Oh
walked out of
gosh.
strategic planning, Kim. I called my ex, and I called Kate, my wife, and I said, get the kids over all the dental, everything, because I'm
Oh
not going to be
yeah.
here longer.
Good that you
Yes.
saw that because
Oh, it was crazy. That was Thursday, and on Monday, I got walked out. The great part is by that point, I had built real estate up to about 25 to 30 sales a year while
that's a
working
lot.
business development job. So we weren't completely out on our back, but we did well. I
You
had a
think that
company
they kind of
car.
knew you were on your way out anyway?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The writing was on the wall. It was getting tough there in that industry because that business is volume based. If your division is making somebody 5 or 6 million a year, but they're losing 25 somewhere else, it doesn't matter. And that's what it boiled down to. So I'm not angry about it. I used to tell my friends would ask me, they're like, how's work? And I ran the craft division of that business. I used to fly around the country getting new
Oh,
breweries
wow.
to come back to Michigan so we could sell their product. So when my friends would ask, like, how's work? I'm like, if I complain, they're like, yeah, we're not listening to you. Nobody wanted to hear. I was in the beer business. I got to fly around and have dinner and drink beer. I had a
And drink
company
beer.
car. Yeah, it was just like you had all the things. So like I learned a lot. I
Yeah,
really did. It was a blessing. I learned a lot about how to run a business rather than just be a salesperson. When
which
you're
is
in charge of,
huge
yeah, it
for
made
real
it huge.
estate because they don't teach you in real estate school anything about running a business.
Right. Yeah, they teach you how to stay out of court. That's about it.
Yeah, they teach you what an acreage is. They teach you everything that you could Google in 2 seconds now.
Correct. And I still have never been asked how many square feet.
No, or like here in Florida, riparian rights. I mean, like all this stuff that you could Google in 2 seconds
Yep.
and nothing about paying taxes and building a business and marketing your business and all this stuff, which too bad. That'd be brilliant if
Yeah.
they would build it up from the 1970s version of real estate school.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be less and less people in this industry as the years continue to go on. And we had a pretty big loss this year with NAR, and there's a lot of unsettling things going on. So I think that's going to continue to be a trend. And this new version of real estate, which is 4 million sales a year, this is the new norm. I know people think it's going to go back to 5.5 million, but that's not on the horizon anytime soon.
No, I don't think so. And to be honest with you, it's more of a normal we lived through the unicorn years, which will never happen again post-COVID, those kind of years. That now is actually a very normal market where you actually have to have skills and work hard and do the things. It's not just plop a sign on the ground. You actually have to have skills.
A distinguishable difference between the haves and the have-nots. And this business is getting harder. Like the reality is it is getting more and more difficult. There are more people fighting for less clients, and there are other giant companies who have been coming after what we do for a long time. And in all fairness, listen, we're heavy on the membership, but not necessarily heavy on skills and professionalism.
Yeah.
And again, that's not an indictment of anyone who walked in the way that they did, because a lot of other industries, we don't train real well.
Again, going back to real estate school, I think that the right to enter should be harder, but more importantly, I think that the school should be training on skills, not just information that if you're out with a client, they ask you the dimension of an acre, pull it up on your phone. But they should teach you the things that you can't learn without it. Just don't get me started. It's just frustrating. Like in my previous life, I was an attorney. It took 3 years to get to those. There was so much knowledge that you had to learn that you didn't necessarily apply all the time, but it should be harder to get your license, and you should actually have to pass a skills-based test more than just a written test on real estate math and random facts that mean nothing.
I agree.
You actually have to go through like a kind of like in mock trial. You should do mock real estate where you have to have the scripts. You should be able to talk the talk and know how to negotiate. You should know how to do it rather than learning on the job on a poor client that's vulnerable to your lack of skills if you don't have them.
Right. I think that ultimately you're coming to a thing that is a real challenge, because who is going to teach them, right? Because you go through a formal education system where you're essentially taught that sales is a necessary evil, not a beneficial thing in the marketplace, right?
Right.
And that starts from kindergarten and works its way up. And none of those people in those classrooms are qualified to teach sales. So that part of that is it makes sense. Then you get into college where typically these professors don't always have sometimes you have some great adjuncts where they are actually business people and they're doing the thing and they can really help with that. But there's still a lot of theory taught before people actually enter any workplace. And I think the apprenticeship model has gone by the wayside, but unfortunately it's one of the best that ever exists. It went on for thousands of years before we tried to ruin it in the last 70.
And that actually should be, I know we can make it in our own businesses, that should actually be a requirement in order to get your license in the state, is you should have had 6 months of apprenticeship and partnering with some, I don't know. I think we could revamp the system. I think that real estate, that a true professional does an enormous amount of good in the industry, because you look at it's like the biggest equity that anybody owns. It's the biggest decision that people make, and to have somebody alongside that's problem solving and putting out fires behind the scenes without drama, and it's enormously important. And we're changing someone's life experience, like someone that goes through a sales process in a positive way, like it actually changes their experience. And it's so important. And people, I know that we get a bad rap, but it's a huge important process. And you're handing off the keys to like the biggest decision they've made outside of marriage. Kind of a big deal. It's bigger than a car. It's bigger than an insurance policy. It's bigger than a lot of decisions, but nobody really realizes that until you're in it.
Yeah. And again, barrier of entry is pretty low considering.
You don't even have to have a high school diploma. You just have to be 18. That's it.
It's the same thing on the other side to purchase or sale too. The reality is you can have an inexperienced person guiding somebody through the process with absolutely no experience, right? The Bible talks about the blind leading the blind. And this is a very real example of that is possible. And it's unfortunate, but there's also, like you said, there are tremendous people in this industry that know everybody and everything when it comes to communities and challenges that you can face. You can't control everything. One of the things we always talk about with clients is, look, I'm not Jesus. I don't walk on water. I'm as fallible as anybody else. But the reality is we're going to help you, right? Find the information that's going to give you enough support to make qualified decisions that are in your best interest, right? We're here to let you know when you're about to step on a landmine. We're here to let you know when you're stepping over opportunity. But at the end of the day, you have to make those decisions and walk through the door. We're here to keep you out of the weeds. And unfortunately, not everybody takes that approach, right? There are people out there that are, one step away from not paying their bills, and they'll push on clients to do things. And listen, this happens in every industry. I'm not going to take it on the chin.
No,
because I'm in real 90% of everything sucks, Kim.
Well,
There's no easy one.
To me, it's problem solving. It's like for a short stint, I took a break from real estate and was a gate agent for Delta. And it was the most fun job, only $11 an hour. But the beauty of the value of that job was then I could fly anywhere for free, and my family could and my parents could. So it was just like, it felt like I was playing a Hollywood role. It was just a lot of fun. But I knew for sure that every single flight, there was going to be some major drama. Every flight, there was drama. So I knew going in advance that there was going to be some major drama. So it really was like a mindset of problem solving in advance, like just putting out fires already, and the customers feel less fearful, because everyone flying is fearful because you don't go into an airport with a lot of process to get there. Yeah, it's not a quick decision to go on an airplane. It's the same thing with every real estate transaction. There's always drama. Every single transaction is going to have drama. And my goal is to put out the fires in advance behind the scenes so that the clients aren't filled with fear or anxiety. Put out the fires and be that problem solver. And I always go into every transaction with the other agent. If we're working together as a team, we're going to put out the fires that are going to come. Let's not make drama out of it. Let's just behind the scene and then make it this happy big hug closing. That's the big goal that I always have. And 90% of the time it works out. Once in a while, it's always the other agent that can cause a drama, but I usually do a pretty good job of helping alleviate that. But I think that if we go into it as a team, we're working together, we're going to figure it out. We have the same goal. We want to sell, they want to buy, and that's it. That's really the bottom line. It's not that, but a lot of times with lack of skills, you can get the drama. But anyway, that's a little sideline that I did not mean to get on. So you were in Michigan. Somehow you wound up in Florida. How'd that happen?
When I got walked, that was our opportunity. Yeah. Ultimately, when I was a kid, I walked you back to band. My first time ever getting out of the state, I don't even remember. We moved to Louisiana when I was a kid because my grandfather was ill. My mom came down and took care of him for 10 months. But outside of that, I had never traveled. Our family didn't have means. We went to the lake in Michigan, and that was the only thing we ever did. But when I was 15, I was a sophomore. I got a chance with the marching band to go on a Disney cruise and be the performers and go to the Bahamas. And I didn't even know what that meant. But I remember getting on that ship. Most importantly, I remember touching the beach for the very first time, like the ocean. On the Atlantic coast, we came out of, I don't remember if it was Space Coast or Lauderdale, one of the two. I think it was Lauderdale, but came out and the seas were terribly rough that morning. And I remember everybody hanging over the rails of that ship. I was flat on my back the entire time, and I was like, this is terrible. But on our way home, so we got to the Bahamas, weather was incredible, had a good time. And then on our way home, I was on this ship, and it was like that moment in Titanic where you're at the front of the boat. And I just remember we're facing west, Kim, and a Gulf sunset, like looking over. And now we're on the Atlantic coast.
Can't pay enough money for that, and we live here.
Right. And we're on the front of this ship, and I'm with my 15-year-old girlfriend who happens to be in the band too. And there's literally dolphins popping up on the side. And I'm like, why do I live in Michigan? This is a terrible game plan, right? So I was 15 when that bug set in. Wow. And I had always had my eye on just making it down here. And my wife, Kate, her dad has been down here for 30 years. And she had been coming down since she was 12 or 13. And we just knew we wanted to be here. When I got walked out the door, it was actually one of those moments where it was like, I was at peace. And I really was like, okay, this is our chance to make this work. So we spent the winter of 18, the beginning of the winter of 18. We spent a week in Jacksonville. We went to Deltona. My father-in-law's in Jensen Beach. I thought we were going to move to Stewart. We got married over there. I really thought that's where we're going to be. We thought so too. And then we came to Tampa, and it was on our list because of growth. Jacksonville was growing. Tampa was growing. But the thing that was unique about it, it was getting younger.
Yes.
And I remember seeing that going, that's interesting because Florida is God's waiting room. That's what everybody's called it forever, especially if you're from the Midwest or up north. That's what everybody calls Florida. That's for snowbirds and old people. That's all the people that live here. But I remember that. So we spent 3 weeks in Florida. Then I went over to my in-laws. I took my test at that point at my
Oh,
class. I
wow.
didn't take my test yet.
Mhm.
I took my class at the Watson School of Real Estate, got my 63 hours in, and then we went back home after figuring it out. And when we stepped on Indian Rocks Beach here in Tampa, we knew immediately that this was home. And so we put our eyes on it. And from that point forward, we went into motion. I sold my house in May, hung out with the in-laws for 6 months while we had our third
Okay.
child, and trying to put peace to everybody's mind because no one believed we were ever going to do it. And as soon as we got the opportunity, we were now packing up ship and we were taking the grandbabies away. And there's a lot of drama
Oh,
around that.
gosh. First, they got
But
used to them.
yeah. But it was the right time. So we packed up in December of 18, made it down to Tampa on the 9th, I think, took possession of the very home that I'm in right now, and
Wow.
have been here ever since, man. And it's been a wild ride, to say the least.
That's great. I love it. And you get to see the sunsets for free now.
I won't call them free, but yes,
Right.
we pay a sunshine tax here, as you're well
There
aware.
you go.
So,
There you go.
absolutely. But yes, it is. We still pinch ourselves regularly about Kate and I love to make a joke that no one has repossessed our life yet because it just
Oh,
doesn't
that's a
feel
great
real.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get into your YouTube, but prior to
Yeah.
that, when you first started, like you would have had no sphere, no friends, family. You literally were starting over again. And I know a lot of agents, especially new ones, I don't have fill in the blank and therefore I
Yeah.
can't fill in the blank. But you obviously had previous skills, both in corporate sales, but also real estate sales. So those are obviously transferable. But how did you get started here? Because it's saturated with agents here.
Yeah.
But there's always, just give us a little rundown of how that went.
Good question. Yeah, there's more agents in our local board now than there was in my entire state when I was in Michigan. So that wrap
Gosh.
your mind around that. But honestly, I was forced into it, Kim. I would love to tell you a beautiful story of like how I prepared and like it was going to be amazing. But the reality was when we moved here, I had a brokerage partnership at that point. We were
Okay.
expanding. We opened a satellite office in Fort Lauderdale because my partner at the time was already going back and forth. We hired a broker of record there. My side of the business was marketing. I've always been very intrigued by marketing. That's what allowed me to build my business when I was in corporate America, because I had a job where I was away 1 week out of every month being in corporate
Oh,
business
okay.
development, right? So I wasn't the agent who could work the corporate job, then come home and then go work real estate all the time. So I always had to use leverage. And very early on, I did things. Trulia is how I got introduced to the business. So I bought Zillow leads way back in the day. And in 2016, I really started learning about like Facebook ads and advertising in general and marketing. I pulled the plug on Zillow and started doing a lot of Facebook. And I really was able to grow a business and leverage that. And early on, I learned how to leverage other agents. Like, hey, can you go show a property for me? I'm out of town. I can't do it. People ask to sell the house, I'd just be straight up, yeah, I can do it when I get home, or you can just tell me what's going on there and I'll figure it out when I get back. And my entire network was in Detroit. It's where I was from. And
Interesting.
when we moved here, while I did set my course before we moved down, I didn't take my test. So when we moved here, I was selling real estate only in Michigan for the first
Okay.
three years we lived here. So
Oh,
December
wow.
of 19 or 18, we moved down until COVID. And then in Michigan, real estate was deemed non-essential.
I didn't think about that. I forgot
Yeah,
about that.
I was here in Florida with no potential income, doing my best to not go to work anymore. Essentially, I was trying to play pretend retirement is what I was trying to do. We were selling 25 to 30 homes a year from here in Michigan,
Wow.
just from the network and the advertising. And like, I didn't go to a listing appointment. I would just put them on Zoom. By that point, people were already using it. So these things lined up, Kim. I was already doing those things. And it's not because I just was ahead because I had to be.
Right.
So my friends would call, be like, Juan, when are you coming home? I'm like, I'm not. If you want me to list your home, let's do a tour on Zoom right now. I'll tell you what you need to fix. I'll get it listed and I'll have my agents come do open house. We'll get it sold. It's not a problem.
Yeah, you were ahead of the game because that's what came out of COVID was
Yes.
learning that you don't have to be there
Yep.
for so much of it.
In Michigan, where we were, a lot of homes had to go through a municipal inspection in order to sell. unlike
wow.
Florida. So even if we could get it open, the government agencies weren't opening up. So all of these transactions
Oh,
were in
wow.
lockdown. So essentially, income went to zero. We had 93 days where we didn't have a dollar come into the house here. And we were doing a lease option on this house, Kim. I got my 7-day letter from the company that owned the house, and they're like, if you don't pay us in the next
Oh my
7 days,
gosh.
we're starting eviction notice. So let me just tell you, y'all, it was not a, hey, Juan moved and everything was hunky dory. That's not how it went down. It was like, so my wife looked at me.
Sunsets and sand in the
Yeah.
future.
She looked at me. She was like, you need to go get your license right now and get your butt to work. Right. I did. I literally scheduled my test, went and got that done. And I did what I knew to do. I started a Facebook page here. I started advertising. I would call agents and email, hey, can I advertise your property? I'll give you credit. They said yes. And within just about 30 days, I picked up my first client, closed a small condo here, but it was like, whew, all right, got going again. And from that point on, what I recognized was if I was going to be in the game, here's the thing that really changed for us. If I was going to be in the game here, I needed to know it because
Right.
unlike Michigan, where I could still tell you where the cops hang out and where you're
Yeah.
not supposed to speed and where the potholes were, I did not know that. And I knew here that I was going to get roughed up if I couldn't speak the language and really talk through it. And I just wanted to be someone who was useful. Not, if I'm going to sell real estate,
Right.
I want to be able to help people. So I made it a mission to learn 3 days a week. I hopped in, I would Uber during COVID, by the way, for 3 hours a day. I did it Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Saturday during the day. And I
You drove an Uber.
drove an Uber for 3
Okay.
hours on those 3 days. And I just asked everyone all the questions,
That's so
right?
smart. You
What
could
used
have
to be over
created
here?
on that,
Like it was a paid education that I needed at that point, right? So, but they would tell me, oh, this used to be here and that used to be here. And they would tell me all the cultural things. And then I started to see people have success on YouTube right around that time. And I was like, I need to figure this out. So what ended up happening is these people would be in my car. They would tell me a story about a place. I would drop them off. I wouldn't pick up another person on a ride. I would go to that spot, pull out my phone and tell the exact story they got done telling me.
Oh, how cool.
And
So
that's how
smart.
I started my journey on YouTube. And that led me into these communities and this exploration. And over the next year, essentially, I probably put more miles on my shoes than most people who have lived in Tampa Bay,
You're
right?
probably
Getting into
right.
these communities and neighborhoods and learning about it. And it got me up to speed where I can talk the language. And the first 5 months, no one reached out to us. I think I had one person text me around November. We launched our channel in September of 21, right during COVID. I literally got COVID the week after I launched that channel,
Oh
the bad
gosh.
version. 3 weeks I was
Oh,
sick. It was brutal.
oh.
But November, right around Thanksgiving, somebody texted me. They ghosted me. Nothing happened. And then the
Were you
first
still
week,
doing Zillow leads, or that was just only in
no
Michigan?
Zillow. Yeah, I was off Zillow
Okay.
2017. Never touched them again. I have opinions about that. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah, but yeah.
That's a whole other show. But I was doing Facebook paid advertisement. That was essentially how I was doing that, trying to make that work. I was never an open house guy. I was never a door knocker. I cold called for 5 seconds, and that was the most terrifying experience of my life. No part of that. I really like when strangers raise their hand. And but yeah, that's how I got that going. And
6 months, and then you had someone that ghosted you, and then what happened?
yep. And then in January, September, we launched. In January, I had the first client reach out officially. Hey, we're in New York. We need to get out of here. We want to buy a house. And I sold a home on February 8th of 22. That was the first client that came out of it to a family from New York in Seminole, the subdivision just east of Walmart over there. And got my first closing ever from YouTube. And then from that point to 6 figures in GCI was only 5 months. So it was like,
Wow. And them's actually without even knowing it, because you launched it without knowing how big or how important YouTube would be during those
right.
COVID years, because
Yeah.
everyone was shopping from afar and so many people were exiting cities and states that were more shut down than here. And it became, and what I found, like, those were magical years. What I found really great was people that wanted to eventually move here were able to accelerate their goals and dreams because they could
Yeah.
work from afar. And how brilliant, without even knowing your brilliancy, of launching YouTube during a time that was exactly the resource that people were using.
Yeah. I was going to starve if I didn't. So y'all don't like it. There's no brilliance there.
It wasn't, but I'm saying you became brilliant without knowing or planning on it. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there are many of us that could have done that, but it was like, oh, I didn't know. But you did it out of necessity, and how like really unique story behind it was your Uber discussions, and that could have been. You could even go back and do it, but like that could be a unique way of doing YouTube that nobody does. Of what's that? Somebody does the car time. Who's the like?
Oh, Seinfeld does the coffee and cars thing. It's
He does
incredible,
that,
right?
and then who's the one that brings all the musicians and sings with them?
Oh God, the karaoke car thing. I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the
yeah.
guy's
But I
name.
mean,
Yep.
something like
Yep.
that. Shoot,
Yep.
you could start a whole new channel that could be so unique.
Yeah. And it definitely, again, I think it was more fortuitous than anything else. And that's a fancy word for on accident, y'all, just so you know. It really was just the stars aligned. We were consistent. Kim,
The
I've seen a lot of
consistency
people.
is the key.
Yeah.
You know that.
No different in whether you door knock
Anything.
or whatever you do in any business, right? The more consistent you are, the more success you're going to have. And I was stubborn because I needed to be. I already saw people having success. So I had proof of concept. It wasn't like I was out there pioneering something that didn't happen yet. I was early considering all the other things that happened over that time period. And it grew. That first year, I think I only did like 12 or 13 total relocations that first full year. But again, it got me to 6 figures in income. It was wonderful. And then the next year, it really started to take off to where now I was starting to have problems and we had to start considering how we were going to start to grow a team. And here we are almost 5 years later, and we're blessed. We have over 400 consultations with strangers every single year. And
Of those 400, is that 400 that transact or just 400?
no, just that reach out. Most of our clients are relocation. It has started to bring a lot of local sellers as well, which is a huge benefit. That took a long time. And the reason that ends up happening is because I have a lot of eyeballs now, right? And people, savvy sellers know that people who have the most eyeballs are going to bring them sellers. And my database is rich with people who want to move here. You know, that's a huge benefit. But it ultimately has been relocation clients. During the peak of COVID, my contact, meaning from the time they would schedule a Zoom call till the closing date for their new home, was down to 92 days. That's how quick it was happening.
Wow. Has that changed since then?
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned earlier, talking about relocation, it has slowed down tremendously. 3 years ago, we were relocating 60 or 70,000 people annually to Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Now this year, we'll probably net 3,000 to 5,000. It won't be a whole lot.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that has shifted a ton. A lot of return to work situation. A ton of people pulled ahead their retirement. Like you said, hey, we are planning on moving to Florida anyways in 3 to 5 years. We're just doing it now. There was so much of it happen.
So much. And families, young families. It was cool.
Yep.
So a couple questions. Your 5th year in or 6th year in of YouTube and YouTube success?
5 years. September 21 is when we launched. So we're coming in at that 5-year mark.
And I'm assuming that over those 5 years, you're now like recycling similar topics or similar neighborhoods. How do you now choose what your topics are? And then the second piece of that question is, how do you prevent kind of the burnout on, oh gosh, been there, done that? You know,
burnout's inevitable, just so everybody knows. Anything you do for a long period of time that ultimately you get good at, you get bored with if you're an entrepreneur. Maybe not everybody has that experience, but most of the people that I know do. But here's what I will say. No matter what you do, this business, just like most business, is very simple. You have to get really good at teaching new people old things, right?
Good way to put it, yeah.
And regardless of whether I want to go back into a neighborhood or not, I have an ideal client. And this is the big thing, Kim, that I will say that I probably try to treat differently than other people who do the same thing that I do. I don't care about view counts. I have videos with hundreds of thousands of great. At the end of the day, what it did was expose me to an audience that wasn't my ideal client. And then I had to fight backwards and reverse from there. I've got videos.
That's a good way to put it, right?
Yeah. I've got videos with a couple hundred views that I can prove a contract from. So who cares how many, right? And the reason being is because I made videos for one person. Okay. My ideal client. Now it happens to be a couple, but I say it in that way because most people confuse views with actual clients. I can point to many people in the real estate industry that have 50, 60, 70,000 followers on Instagram or TikTok, and they don't have any closings to show from it. It doesn't make me better, but that was my focus. What I know, because I love marketing, is if you know who it is that you're best suited to serve, and you talk directly to them, they are going to raise their hand eventually. And what happens is the stats are fun to talk about but ultimately, Kim, I know who's in front of me once they schedule that call. They don't text me and then I have my assistant chase them down. They don't come into my CRM and I have to call people. They literally go to my calendar and schedule that call with me. And when
So is your ideal client you guys when you moved here as a young family?
That's a good question. Yeah, yes and no. I'm gonna give you the specifics. I've grown with this, right? I know.
Oh, good point. It probably evolves.
Yes. Yeah. Just like most people's business will. When I started, I was first time home buyer. That was very much my thing. I heard this quote from a gentleman by the name of Rory Baden, and it stuck with me. One of the best quotes I ever heard. And he said, "You're most uniquely designed to serve the person you once were." So
yeah,
the
Ed
question
Milet says that too. Yeah. And I've told my son that too, because he's launched a channel. I'm like, talk to who you were when you moved to Austin.
Yeah. Yep. And that's a huge part of it. So that discovery up front, people were aligning with that. There was honest. Hey, I moved here. Every year I tell them how long I've been here. Hey, my name's Juan. 6 years ago, my wife Kate and I moved down. I have the story that I tell. I connect with them that way, right?
Right.
Now, my ideal client happens to be a get to, not a have to. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Because when you dive into this, is who I'm talking to directly. Our ideal client chooses to move to Florida, right? Do we serve people that relocate here because of work? Yes. But what I have found, even with them, none of them are forced to do it. They're usually C-suite executive. They were offered the job, and it's in alignment with what their family was hoping to do anyways. So when I say that, I already know who I'm talking to, right? You understand the benefits of living here. And we describe the challenges thoroughly, but what we do is help them understand that without suffering, there is no joy, so to speak. And that transparency is why those interactions and why those clients are so incredible. If it was just about people, like going through numbers, I wouldn't do it. I could go sell things on Amazon and make money without people complaining. For being a psychologist, refunds are easy to give when product's broken. And it's probably more money in it too, to be quite honest. But the reality is, I know exactly who it is. They want to come here. They're chasing sunsets. They're chasing lifestyle. They're chasing outdoor activities. They're chasing freedoms that a lot of people don't have. And I'm not afraid to say those things. I know some people are terrified to talk about politics and religion on camera, but I talk about the Lord, and I am not afraid to talk about how blessed I am to live in a state where we are free, right? Yes, there's always going to be challenges and nothing's perfect, but this version of freedom is better than the other places I've been. And my ideal client resonates. As long as they don't
bring their politics down. I mean, it's okay. Look, I do like the freedom here, especially during COVID. It was pretty special, wasn't it?
Yes. And that ultimately is what allows me to serve them. So I'm talking about moving up. I'm talking about lifestyle focus. And that's really helped us be in a position where our ideal client does very well for themselves. And ironically enough, I'll share this with you, Kim, like half of our clients are either private educated or homeschool. We homeschool, by the way. She typically is stay at home with those kids. And the husbands of these families are either high income earning W-2s, but most of them are self-employed in some way, shape, or form.
That's interesting.
So, it's fun. Yeah. You are who you serve, right? So
yeah. And it's way easier to serve people that you kind of align with, which obviously there's enough agents out there to find that person. But what percentage of your business is from YouTube? 80. You're probably getting repeat clients, which would probably serve the other 20%, 80.
So
right?
This has been a huge shift in my life. I'll explain to you guys in detail like what I mean by this. But when I left Michigan, I shared with you guys, right? I was selling from a different state, never being there. My business was almost 90, 100% referral and SOI at that point, right? Yes, I was still using paid advertisement, but I love the game of going from one client to the next. Once YouTube took off here, I did not have an SOI here. I knew one person in Tampa Bay when we moved here, one. And once YouTube took off for me here, that started to outpace, right? 12 the first year wasn't a big deal, 35 the second year. And now all of a sudden we're jumping to 8,500 transactions from YouTube alone annually. So that last year was 90% of my total business in both
Wow.
states, both Michigan and Florida, because I have a partner. We do YouTube in Michigan as well. This year, it will be approximately 80%. We're trying to work that back, and it's unbalanced. But again, over 400 people have reached out to us already this year. We've sat over
Wow.
300 appointments, and I think we just closed our 98th or 99th property this year,
That's
all through
good.
content, which is wild.
Wow. So what percentage of your week is spent making content, and then what percent is spent working with clients?
So I am no longer in production. Juan is officially the DH and only on emergency days. Now, what do I mean by that? And y'all, please don't discount this. I know people hear that and they're like, okay, what value is there? Now,
CEO, and you're the face and the voice, but you don't
yeah,
maybe have to be boots on the ground.
I'm sharing that in this light. As much as I love the business, I never loved the activity of the business. What I've always been intrigued by, Kim, is getting strangers to raise their hand. That's been my fascination. Real estate was just the vehicle that allowed me to fulfill it, right? It's a full contact sport, if you will. So once I got to a point where I was outrunning my efforts, it was just obvious we needed to hire other people. But what I've come to learn about myself more than anything else is I really value contribution above everything else in my life. This is why I went to school to be a teacher to begin with. I didn't recognize it at the
Good point.
time,
Yeah.
but that's where I ultimately end up being. Now, I still help negotiate. I'm still in the weeds with my team on all of those things. I'm going to go show a property today because it's right around the corner. I'm not going to have my agent drive 30. That's just nonsense. All right. I'm just going to go take care of it. So I'm still there. My wife was our transaction coordinator for the last 6 years. We've now handed that off to another person, but I'm sharing this with y'all because we're at a point now where I get to raise up and coach agents to have a life that they didn't think was possible. In the last 2 years, we've taken on 2 new agents on our team. We took 2 more on this year, but 2 agents that I've personally coached through this. And one of them was a mom. She was stay at home, served her family, put all her kids in college. And she was like, I want to do this for me. She had her license for 4 years, Kim. No real success with paid for realtor leads. Never sold 4 houses is the most she ever sold out of those 4 years. She came into our company. I helped her get 5 contracts her first 5 weeks with us.
It's
She went
awesome.
on to almost do $200,000 in income that first year. And
Oh,
she has turned into a perennial rock star on our team. This year, I had another brand new agent who we actually relocated here from North Carolina 18 months ago. She got her license, asked to join the team. We were not capable of taking new agents on at that point. So she went and cut her teeth on another team for 6 months and kept pounding the door. And I said, all right, come on in. And in her first 12 months, she just closed her 23rd transaction.
wow.
She served 23 families this year.
That's
So
amazing.
for me, and forgive me for getting long-winded on this, but my focus now is helping others execute on that and to grow their business to where they can have a lifestyle that they never imagined, because this industry is incredible in that way. And what'll end up happening is if you serve enough people, Zig said it best, right? Help enough people get what they want and you'll have what you want. And ultimately, I'm now able to, you asked about the production thing. I'm on camera for about an hour each week. I know it's ridiculous to say that out loud. I think about being on camera for about 30 hours a week, but I'm only on it for the idea thing that you asked earlier. That's where a lot of people get hung up and it gets difficult. Now we're at a point where we essentially make the same 5 style videos. Yes, they look different. The thumbnails will be different, but essentially, Kim, they're the same content bucket. They're just 5 different categories that we choose from. And though we've learned that because the feedback that the audience and of course the appointments that you schedule.
So
And
what 5 styles?
that's a good question. So you have the basics, right? So I want to talk about the types of business that we have, right? Because not
Oh, sure.
everybody
Yeah.
runs the same style business. You have agents who say, hey, I'm a list agent. I don't do anything but listing. Our business is primary relocation at this point, which it never was when I was in Michigan. So we do a tremendous amount of business on that. So our categories are what we refer to as listicles. That's educational type content that talks about things like the pros and cons, the top 5 this. People love that type of content. They're, again, get good at teaching new people old things, right? While I don't want to talk about my neighborhood again for the 10th time over the last 4 years, the new person is discovering it. And that is where you have to get comfortable with that. We do community style tours. We do property tours, but what we found is community style tours are the ones that really win. And what does that mean? So you show somebody all the great things about a community and you show them the type of real estate they can find within that community.
Mhm.
We will do straight up property tours for our sellers. We do those as well because they do work. We have a lot of new construction in the area. We do a tremendous amount of new construction here. So that's another type of content. We do what we call trust-based content, and that is where we share the uglies. And this is where most people aren't willing to go. And we found a tremendous amount of success. As an example, our home flooded last year from Hurricane Milton. We've shared our journey. And trust me, the comments are like, why would you ever tell somebody about being flooded? Why would I not? It happened. And we live in paradise, but y'all, people are miserable in paradise too. Right.
Right.
So sharing with them those objective truths really brings people close to you. So if you
Mhm.
look at listicle based, if you look at property or community style tours, you look at property tours, you look at trust based content, and then there's the what's happening in, right? What is the content that is tip of mind or tip of tongue that people are really on? Those are the things that we help them with too. So I do that in a live stream weekly. And that's where we can get into the news and talk about
Mhm.
developments and groundbreaking and all the things that are happening in the community. So those are really the 5 types of content that we run with. And they'll all have different thumbnails and different titles, but we're just running the same play over and over again.
I love that.
You have a
And so
system for
you're all,
listing houses, right?
what's that?
You have a system for listing houses.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So are you always the face on the videos, or are you starting to bring other agents in, or
Yeah.
is it
So
better to keep it the way it is?
good question. So people will tend to lock in on the one person. That's what we have found. Now, I do bring the agents in for a few different reasons. I knew I was going to be building a team right out of the rip. So very early on, even before I had a team, I said, hey, reach out to me and the team. That was my call to action because I knew at
Okay.
some point they would come. And this is before I was even getting people to raise their hand. But what that allowed me to do is start to lend authority. So I will have the agents on. I'll give you an example, Kim. I get a lot of come list me calls at this point, right? Juan, you got a big audience. We'd love for you to feature our home on your YouTube channel.
Oh,
So what I'll do is I'll take a co-agent with me and I'll make them point of contact. So I'll sit in, have the listing appointment with the client. I'm running the full play with you. You're getting everything that I have to offer, all of my marketing and expertise and everything. But this agent is going to be open house. They're going to be negotiating contracts. I'm here, but they're the one running point. So I'll feature them on that property tour. I'll do the community tour portion of it or pull them in and I'll have them be the character on
that's nice.
the property tour. And it's a great way. They get the exposure. I pull them in on our live streams. Our live streams are communal. That is me and my agents on my team talking about what's going on in the community.
Okay.
I've got agents that live in Pasco. I've got agents that live in Pinellas. I've got agents that live in Hillsborough, right? Agents that live in Manatee. So what I'll do is I'll have them be the local expert,
Well, that's cool. How many
right?
agents are in your team now?
Well, we have 4 in Tampa. So hold on, double check. 4 in Tampa and 3 in Michigan. And we don't have enough. I'll tell you that right now from the amount of opportunity we have. But yeah, it's been a huge blessing. So
That's
what it
great.
allows them to do is build trust with the audience.
Mhm.
And when we meet with the clients, it's such a blessing now where I'm like, what happens on that call, Kim, is essentially they vet who I am, make sure that I am who I said I was on camera. And then I hand the real estate component over to the agent at that point.
Good business strategy.
It took time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was anxious. We're all mostly control enthusiasts, right? Yeah. So it took time and there was fear and we made mistakes and all of those things are true. But we are at the point now where the reality is my agents are the experts now, Kim.
That's so
I'm not in
great.
Wesley Chapel every day. You want to know about IRB? You want to know about Seminole? You want to know about Safety Harbor? Great. Outside of that, I'm the dancing monkey is what I tell everybody at this point, right? You don't want me. You want Stacy. You want Ashley. You want Madison. You want Steven. Those are the people you want on this because they know where the potholes are.
So do you think, speaking to agents that maybe are curious about getting into YouTube or hesitant, do you think A, it's become too saturated, or B, it's still a good gameplay to go after?
I would say it's and at this point. Okay. I'll give you the short of it. Saturation is objective, right? Or subjective. And it's arguable. the reality is there are way more choices now than there was when I started in 2021, right? It was me and Adam and Ben. I think there was like 3 of us willing to do it. There was a bunch of other type of content, but people sharing community or like information about, we were some of the first to do that. Now there's probably 30 or 40 who are consistent with it. So 10x, right? I'm sure I'm losing opportunities to a lot of those guys. Here's the cool part about when you make content. Guess how many no's you actually get?
That's a good point. Yeah.
I've never been turned down.
All in expires. Yeah.
You know why? Because they don't get in my calendar. I never know that they chose somebody else. So for my little weak ego, boy, that's really nice. It feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here, going back to the other side of this, the and component is, listen, Kim, you and I can make the exact same content. I could hand you my script. You and I could read them word for word, right? But someone is going to connect with you and someone will connect with me. And this is why you should do it no matter what anyone says. Because when that person schedules a call with you and sends you their entire life story in an email short of their social security number and their children's blood work, it is the most amazing experience you're ever going to have in real estate. It is not, you're not fighting they're not vetting you. Even if they tell you like I'm interviewing, that's just a savvy home buyer, right? Or a home seller. Yeah. They're not. You are the person and they want you. And when you get in that relationship with somebody, it is a game. It feels so good. The friction goes away. People tend to take counsel really well. There's a lot of trust built.
Because they already know and trust you because they watched you for hours on the TV, in their living room.
Yep. So
Juan, I so appreciate everything. Your wisdom is fabulous and your execution is impressive and the outcome clearly speaks for itself. So I think that agents that are on the fence, listen to Juan.
Do it. Just at the end of the day, this is a game of
and do it consistently. Don't just dabble. Do it.
Get in front of strangers.
You're in or you're out.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'll get this out. I'll let you know when it's going to publish, and we'll get it out there.
Okay, cool. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Bye, Juan.
Later.
Thanks for listening to Rewriting Real Estate. If today's episode challenged your thinking or gave you a strategy worth trying, share it. The right move at the right time can change everything. Subscribe and listen in next week for more insight, more momentum, and more ways to grow your business your way.